After investigating a strange case, a police officer becomes trapped in demonic terror. The film begins by showing a mysterious incident in 2010 when 3 American soldiers stationed in Iraq accidentally discover a strange underground room. Curious about what they have found, they decide to enter and investigate the place. However, not long after they step inside, a loud scream suddenly echoes from one of them. No one truly knows what happened in that room, but the incident becomes the starting point of the terrifying events that unfold throughout the story. 3 years later, the story shifts to a police officer named Ralph Sarchie, who is usually just called Sarchie. He is on patrol with his partner Butler when they receive a report about a domestic violence case involving a former soldier. Without wasting any time, they immediately head to the location.
Run a name check on a 1052.
Response to a 1052 violent dispute. The name of the 1052 tenant is Jimmy Trevner. Burnside to Grand Conk on the cross.
Hoorah! Let's go.
There, Sarchie meets a man named Jimmy, who is suspected of hurting his wife. After seeing the woman's face covered in injuries, Sarchie decides to take Jimmy to the police station. However, Jimmy refuses to cooperate and suddenly attacks Sarchie with a knife. Even though the situation becomes dangerous for a moment, Sarchie and Butler eventually manage to subdue Jimmy and bring him to the station.
Yeah, everything's gonna be...
Not long after that case is handled, they receive another report that sounds far stranger. This time the call comes from the Bronx Zoo, where a mother is reported to have thrown her own young son into a lion enclosure. When Sarchie and Butler arrive at the scene, a police officer who arrived earlier explains that the woman has not been captured yet and may still be somewhere inside the zoo. The situation grows even more tense when the electricity throughout the zoo suddenly goes out, leaving the entire area in complete darkness. In that condition, the officers are forced to split up to search for the woman. After searching the area, Sarchie eventually finds her near the monkey enclosure. However, her behavior is extremely strange. She does not try to run away or resist, but instead keeps scratching the ground as if she is searching for something. At that moment, Sarchie's attention is drawn to a mysterious man standing not far from there. According to one of the zookeepers, the man is simply a worker assigned to paint the enclosure area. But when Sarchie asks him to come closer, the man calmly walks toward the lion enclosure and steps inside without showing any fear at all. Sensing that something is not right, Sarchie immediately follows him into the enclosure. Strangely, as soon as he gets inside, the mysterious man has completely disappeared without a trace. The situation quickly turns dangerous when the lion, which is supposed to be locked inside, suddenly breaks free and charges towards Sarchie. Fortunately, he manages to survive the attack from the wild animal. The next day, the woman who threw her child into the lion enclosure is taken to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. There, she is placed under the supervision of a priest named Joe Mendoza. That is when it is revealed that the woman's name is Jen Crenna. Father Joe then gives his contact information to Sarchie in case a similar incident happens again in the future. Later that night, Sarchie receives another call about a new case. For some reason, he has a strong feeling that this incident might be connected to the strange events involving Jen. When he arrives at the location with Butler, they find that the family living in the house looks extremely frightened and has chosen to sleep together in the living room. According to them, the house has been experiencing disturbing events, such as lights suddenly exploding and mysterious noises constantly coming from the basement. To investigate the situation, Sarchie and Butler decide to go down to the basement.
The candles won't burn.
They think down there is where the evil comes from.
No light down there.
We're gonna go down and check out the basement.
However, the horrible smell down there is so overwhelming that Butler cannot stand it and quickly goes back upstairs. Meanwhile, Sarchie continues checking the basement alone. Not long after, he discovers something shocking, a dead body lying there. After further investigation, the homeowner explains that they once hired a painter to work in the house. However, the man was supposed to leave after finishing his job. It is later revealed that the body belongs to a man named Griggs. The homeowner also mentions that Griggs did not work alone, and his partner had features very similar to the mysterious man Sarchie saw earlier at the zoo. Without wasting time, Sarchie and his team immediately go to Griggs's house to investigate further into the death of the man found in the basement. There, Sarchie discovers a shocking fact that Griggs is the husband of Jen Crenna, the woman who previously threw her son into the lion enclosure at the zoo. The investigation also reveals that Griggs is a war veteran. This immediately reminds Sarchie of Jimmy, the man who was previously arrested for abusing his wife and who also has a military background. The connection becomes even more suspicious when they learn that another one of their former partners is the mysterious man Sarchie saw earlier at the zoo, a man named Santino. From this point on, it becomes clear that the three of them are somehow connected.
Shit. That's the guy we're looking for. Santino, Jimmy the wife beater, Griggs.
While the investigation continues, Sarchie's personal life also begins to suffer. His wife becomes upset because he's too busy with his job and barely has time for his family, even though she is pregnant with their second child. Despite the pressure at home, Sarchi still returns to the police station to continue his investigation. There, he meets Father Joe Mendoza again, who is still interested in Jen's case and asks for permission to see the CCTV footage of the moment when Jen threw her son into the lion enclosure. According to Joe, the woman's actions might not simply be the result of mental illness, but could be influenced by a dark supernatural force. However, Sarchi, who still thinks rationally, refuses to show him the footage. As the investigation continues, Sarchi eventually discovers an important fact that Griggs, Jimmy, and Santino were once members of the same platoon during their deployment in Iraq. This discovery directly connects them to the incident at the beginning of the story, when the 3 soldiers discovered the mysterious underground room. After returning from the war, the 3 of them were dishonorably discharged from the military. Not long after that, the autopsy report on Griggs's body is released, and the results shock Sarchi because it states that Griggs actually died by suicide. This contradicts Sarchi's earlier suspicion that Santino might have been responsible for his death. In the middle of his confusion, Sarchi decides to watch the CCTV footage from the zoo again. In the recording, Santino appears to be working normally, as if nothing unusual happened when Jen threw her son into the lion enclosure. However, Sarchi notices something far stranger, mysterious symbols appearing around the lion enclosure that look like a type of writing no human can understand.
Name is Mick Santino. All 3 were dishonorably discharged. This creature's autopsy report. Suicide? They attacked the battalion chaplain. What's that writing on the back wall? Graffiti? She knew Santino, so what was she doing there?
As the situation grows increasingly strange, Sarchi decides to visit Jimmy's house to search for more clues. At that time, Jimmy is not at home, so Sarchi asks his wife for permission to check Jimmy's workroom. From her explanation, Sarchi learns that Jimmy's behavior began to change after he returned from Iraq. Lately, Jimmy often scratches at things until his own fingers become injured. Several weeks earlier, Santino and Griggs had also visited the house to paint that room. When Sarchi examines the walls, he discovers that behind the layer of paint, there are strange symbols identical to the ones he saw in the lion enclosure. The situation suddenly becomes tense when the electricity in the house begins to malfunction and the lights start flickering. In that moment, Sarchi realizes that Jimmy has been hiding in the attic of his own house. However, before he can be captured, Jimmy manages to escape by jumping out of a second-floor window. After Jimmy escapes, Sarchi finds a laptop belonging to him which becomes an important clue in the investigation. The laptop contains video recordings from the time when Jimmy, Griggs, and Santino were serving in Iraq. In the footage, Santino's behavior begins to appear increasingly strange, as if something is influencing him. The recording also shows the underground room they once discovered in Iraq, and on its walls are the same symbols that were found in Jimmy's house, in the lion enclosure, and even in the basement where Griggs's body was discovered. Because the case becomes more complicated and difficult to explain, Sarchi finally contacts Father Joe and asks him to meet Jen at the psychiatric hospital. However, when they arrive there, Jen's condition appears even more unstable.
Hello, Jane. Do you know a man named Santino? Why'd you go visit him at the zoo?
When Sarchi shows her a photo of the mysterious symbols he found, Jen suddenly reacts aggressively and bites Sarchi's hand. Since they failed to get any useful information from Jen, Joe then invites Sarchi to talk at a bar. At the bar, Sarchi once again shows Joe the strange symbols he discovered in Jimmy's house. Joe explains that the symbols are believed to be connected to a gateway for dark supernatural forces. However, this explanation is still difficult for Sarchi to accept, because since the age of 12, he has stopped believing in God and always tries to view everything through logic.
These are messages to the spirits of Babylon. Where did you uncover the writing?
Inside the lion habitat at the zoo.
The Latin here refers to providing a gateway. Some people invited themselves by it. That wouldn't be a cult?
Murdered, raped. Where's God when all that's happening?
After their meeting, Sarchi returns home, but when he arrives, he finds his wife extremely frightened. She explains that while Sarchi was investigating Jimmy's house, their daughter heard scratching noises coming from inside her bedroom. When Sarchi tries to check the room to see what is really happening, something unexpected suddenly begins to occur. Around the same time, the situation at the psychiatric hospital where Jen is being held turns chaotic. Somehow, Jen manages to escape and causes the death of a guard during her escape. Not long after that, Sarchi and Father Joe review the CCTV footage from the zoo once again, showing the moment when Jen threw her son into the lion enclosure. In the recording, Santino can be seen standing near the cage, as if he is interacting with the lions. Suddenly, Sarchi notices a terrifying figure appearing briefly in the footage, the same figure he previously saw in his daughter's bedroom. He even hears strange sounds coming from the recording, yet Joe cannot see or hear anything at all. Joe then explains that Sarchi may have a special sensitivity to the spiritual world that others cannot perceive, but that sensitivity also makes him and his family targets for dark supernatural forces. Not long afterward, Butler arrives with new information that they have finally found Santino's address. Without wasting time, Sarchi, Butler, and Joe immediately head there to capture him. However, when they arrive, the house is empty. Sarchi and Joe decide to wait outside. While waiting, Sarchi receives a phone call from his wife, but he chooses to ignore it because he is focused on the investigation. Without him realizing it, back at home, his daughter once again hears scratching noises coming from inside her room.
I'm gonna run your bath and it's time for bed, okay?
A few moments later, Santino finally appears. Sarchi and Butler immediately move to surround him, but Santino quickly runs toward the building's basement. Butler chases him down the emergency stairs while Sarchi uses the elevator to cut him off. However, when Sarchi arrives at the basement, he is suddenly attacked by Jimmy, who somehow is already there.
As a cop.
The attack gives Santino the chance to escape. Meanwhile, Butler manages to confront Santino, but the intense fight ends tragically when Santino, seemingly under the influence of a dark force, easily kills Butler. At the same time, Sarchi is still struggling with Jimmy until Father Joe arrives to help him, and together they manage to subdue Jimmy. Afterward, Sarchi rushes to find Santino, but instead he discovers Butler's lifeless body. The sight fills him with guilt for not being able to save his partner in time. However, without realizing it, the situation at his home is becoming even more dangerous. His daughter is once again being disturbed, and this time Santino secretly comes directly to their house. The next morning, while Sarchi is driving home, he is suddenly shocked when Jen jumps from the top of a tall building and crashes onto his car. Sarchi immediately calls an ambulance to take the woman to the hospital. Not long after that, his phone rings again from his wife's number, but the voice he hears is not his wife's. Instead, it is Santino, who reveals that he has taken Sarchi's wife and child hostage. Hearing this, Sarchi immediately rushes home while calling the police for backup. When he arrives, he confronts Santino, who now appears to be possessed. Sarchi tries to force him to reveal where his family is being held, but Santino remains silent. Soon after, the police arrive and arrest him, bringing him into an interrogation room.
My wife and daughter.
Yet Santino still refuses to say anything. Seeing how critical the situation has become, Father Joe offers the only solution he believes can end everything, performing an exorcism ritual immediately. Joe asks Sarchi to help him and explains that the ritual will go through several extremely difficult stages. He also warns Sarchi not to speak to Santino during the ritual and to stay focused on the prayers. As the ritual begins, a powerful pressure immediately hits Sarchi, making him feel dizzy. Soon afterward, Santino appears to regain consciousness, as if he is no longer possessed. But Joe explains that this is only a phase of manipulation, where the evil force is trying to deceive them into stopping the ritual. Moments later, the entity possessing Santino becomes violent again, showing tremendous strength and even breaking the shackles around his legs. The creature begins speaking in Latin, attempting to provoke Father Joe emotionally. The situation becomes extremely tense, but Sarchi manages to calm Joe so the ritual can continue. In the next stage, Joe tries to force the entity to reveal its name, knowing that the name is the key to casting it out. However, the creature refuses to answer. Under the immense pressure, Sarchi suddenly hears a faint whisper revealing a name, Youngler. When the name is spoken aloud, the entity becomes even more aggressive. Mental attacks continue relentlessly, but Joe and Sarchi remain strong until the evil force is finally driven out of Santino's body. After everything is over, Santino regains full consciousness and reveals the location where Sarchi's wife and child are being held. Thanks to this information, the police are able to rescue them safely. The long and terrifying ordeal finally makes Sarchi realize how precious his family truly is. After everything that has happened, he decides to retire from the police force and choose a new path in life. Sarchi follows Father Joe's path and becomes a priest, dedicating himself to helping fight against dark supernatural forces. And with that, the story finally comes to an end.